In a world that races to be louder, faster, and ever more entangled, we are taught to mirror its pace. Noise is mistaken for importance, reaction for strength. But what if power lies not in motion, but in stillness? Chaos is not merely around us, it is within us. It is the storm of unchecked thoughts, of desires pulling in opposing directions, of fears imagined and magnified. Chaos is the habit of chasing everything and understanding nothing. Stillness, on the other hand, is not apathy. It is not the absence of action, but the presence of clarity. It is the discipline to pause when provoked, to remain centered when all else trembles, to respond with reason when the world demands a reaction born of emotion. The one who is still sees clearly. They are not unmoved by the world, but unshaken by it. They walk through fire and do not burn, not because they are invulnerable, but because they have trained the mind to observe rather than absorb. They do not feed the chaos with their energy. They meet it with quiet understanding. There is a kind of wisdom that does not shout. It does not rush to prove itself. It stands like a mountain in the storm, worn perhaps by time, but never broken. This wisdom waits, it watches, it acts only when action is called for, and when it does, its movement is deliberate and unwavering. Ask yourself, do I want to be like the leaves scattered by every wind, or the rooted tree standing tall in every season? Stillness is not weakness, it is mastery over self. It is the strength to hold fast when fear would have you flee, to choose calm when anger beckons, to remain whole when the world fractures. In the end, peace is not found in the absence of problems, it is found in the presence of a mind untroubled by them. Choose stillness, not to escape the chaos, but to rise above it. Stillness is often misunderstood in today's world. In a culture that celebrates constant motion, quick responses, and visible productivity, stillness can appear as idleness or weakness. But this perception is shallow. True stillness is not the absence of effort, it is the disciplined control of it. It is not about doing nothing, but about doing only what is necessary and doing it with intent. The one who remains still under pressure demonstrates mastery over themselves, and this is a far greater strength than any outburst or display of force. To be still is to choose not to be ruled by emotion. It is easy to lash out, to speak without thought, to act on impulse. It is easy to be pulled into the noise around us, to match the chaos with chaos of our own. But what is easy is rarely what is wise. Strength does not lie in reacting to every provocation. Strength lies in the ability to hold firm, to pause, to resist the tug of immediate gratification. It is the quiet confidence of one who does not need to prove anything, who is not a slave to external validation or inner turmoil. A still person is not detached or indifferent. They are engaged, but they are not overwhelmed. They are fully present in the moment, but not consumed by it. This presence allows for sharper judgment, calmer decisions, and more effective action. Their power comes not from domination, but from self-possession. When faced with adversity, they do not flinch. When confronted with insult or injustice, they do not lose themselves. They stay rooted in principle, governed by reason, and anchored in self-awareness. This kind of stillness is born of discipline. It requires practice, self-reflection, and restraint. It is not a passive state, it is active control over the inner life. To hold back a harsh word when you feel attacked, to listen rather than speak when your pride is stung, to wait when every part of you wants to rush forward, these are acts of real strength. They do not appear dramatic or heroic in the moment, but they are victories of the highest kind. They are victories over the self. Stillness also shows itself in endurance. Life is filled with discomfort, uncertainty, and pain. The strong do not run from these experiences, they endure them without flailing, without complaint, and without letting them shape their character. Stillness is the posture of the one who has accepted the nature of the world, who does not demand that everything be easy or fair, but instead focuses on how to face each situation with integrity. It is the mark of someone who understands that what happens to them is not always within their power, but how they respond always is. There is a quiet nobility in stillness. It does not boast. It does not parade itself. It does not seek applause. It simply holds its ground, firm and composed, whether in victory or defeat, comfort or pain. The truly still person does not need to shout to be heard, does not need to hurry to be effective, does not need to control others to feel powerful. Their power lies in the one domain they truly possess themselves. Stillness is not for the faint of heart. It takes courage to be calm in the face of provocation, to be measured when others are erratic, to be unmoved when the crowd surges. But the one who chooses stillness over chaos holds a strength that cannot be taken or shaken. It is a strength that does not depend on circumstance or recognition, because it is rooted in character rather than conditions. Chaos is often imagined as something external, a crisis, a disaster, a noisy world spinning out of control. But the more dangerous form of chaos is not outside of us, it's within. It begins in the mind, in the realm of thought, judgment, and desire. The mind, when left unchecked, becomes a battlefield of conflicting impulses. It leaps forward into imagined futures, replays past regrets, reacts to every stimulation with anxiety, envy, anger, or fear. This internal unrest is the true source of our suffering, and until it is confronted, no amount of external order will bring peace. The person who seeks calm must first learn to recognize the storm within themselves. Thoughts, when undisciplined, race endlessly. Desires multiply without end. One fulfilled, another appears, and then another. Fear, unexamined, distorts reality, turning uncertainty into dread. The mind, allowed to wander without guidance, clings to illusion and exaggeration. It creates chaos not because the world demands it, but because it lacks the structure to respond differently. This is why one person can remain serene in crisis while another panics in stillness. The difference is not the situation, but the state of the mind meeting it. It is tempting to blame outer circumstances for inner turmoil. People point to stress, noise, or injustice and say that these things disturb their peace. But the wise understand that events are neutral until the mind judges them. A delayed train, a harsh word, a sudden loss. These are part of life's natural rhythm. They are not chaos in themselves. Chaos begins when the mind insists that things should not be as they are, when it rebels against the flow of nature, when it resists rather than accepts. The friction born of resistance is what feeds the inner fire. Many think that control over life's conditions will bring calm. If only people behaved better, if only the world slowed down, if only things went according to plan, then they could find peace. But this peace is conditional, fragile, and false. Because the world cannot be bent to one's will without end, and even when it is, the mind will find new problems to fixate on. Real peace comes not from changing the world, but from changing the relationship to it. It comes from order within, from governing thoughts rather than being governed by them. To bring stillness to the mind is to recognize the noise it creates. It means becoming aware of each judgment that arises, each fear that intrudes, each desire that disrupts. It means learning to pause before reacting, to question before assuming, to observe rather than immediately engage. This does not come naturally. It requires effort and vigilance. The inner life must be trained just as the body must be exercised. Without attention, it becomes flabby, chaotic, weak. With discipline, it becomes sharp, balanced, and calm. Chaos thrives in the absence of clarity. When the mind is clouded by opinion, assumption, and unchecked emotion, it cannot see clearly. It misjudges others, misunderstands situations, and acts in ways that deepen suffering. But when the mind is steady, it becomes like a still lake reflecting the truth of things without distortion. It no longer creates problems where none exist. It no longer turns inconvenience into crisis or discomfort into despair. This clarity brings power. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that liberates the self. To defeat chaos, one must confront it where it truly resides, not in the noise outside, but in the noise within. That is where the battle is fought each day. That is where discipline must be applied, not by suppressing thought, but by guiding it, not by denying emotion, but by understanding it. The world may remain uncertain, unpredictable, and imperfect, but the mind need not mirror it. The mind can become the calm center around which all else turns, and from that center true stillness begins. Stillness is often mistaken for inaction. To the untrained eye, a person who waits, who does not rush to speak or move, may seem passive or indifferent. But this view confuses silence with absence and calm with complacency. Stillness is not the refusal to act. It is the refusal to act unnecessarily. It is not laziness, nor is it weakness. It is the choice to move with purpose rather than impulse, to wait for the right moment instead of being dragged by the noise of urgency. Stillness, properly understood, is precise and powerful. There is a kind of strength in waiting that is deeper than aggression. Anyone can lash out when provoked, but to pause, to assess, to resist the instinct to strike simply because the opportunity presents itself, that requires discipline. The still person is not frozen or unaware. They are sharply attuned to their surroundings, but they are not a servant to them. They listen not just to words, but to context, not just to movement, but to meaning. Their action, when it comes, is deliberate. It is shaped by understanding rather than by emotion or pride. Stillness prepares the ground for wise action. When the mind is not clouded by reactivity, it can see what is truly needed. Most mistakes arise not from ignorance, but from haste, from acting before the situation has been properly understood. We are quick to interpret, quick to respond, quick to impose our assumptions. But speed does not equal clarity. On the contrary, the rush to act often bypasses the very insight that might have guided us well. A still mind considers before committing. It sees the angle others miss. It moves last, and often it moves best. Action without thought is noise. It expends energy without direction. It feeds ego, not effectiveness. Stillness cuts through this. It reminds us that not every demand deserves a response, not every challenge a confrontation. Many things resolve themselves in time. Many problems shrink when left alone. The still person does not abandon responsibility. They refine it. They understand that action is most powerful when it is reserved, most meaningful when it is rare. They do not dilute their influence with constant motion. Instead, they conserve it for moments that matter. In this way, stillness is a form of control. It governs the internal before addressing the external. It allows space between event and response, and in that space lies the power to choose wisely. This power is often overlooked because it is quiet. It does not parade itself. It does not insist on being noticed, but it is there, shaping outcomes silently, like the roots that support a tree even as they remain hidden. The actions of the still person may be few, but they are well chosen, and in that selectivity lies their impact. To act with stillness is to be free from compulsion. It is to be unmoved by the pressure to prove oneself through constant doing. The one who acts from stillness does not seek credit, because they are not driven by insecurity. They are at peace with what they are, and so their actions come from alignment, not anxiety. They choose what is necessary, discard what is superfluous, and do so with quiet confidence. Their strength is not in how much they do, but in how little they waste. Even when surrounded by frenzy, the still person does not rush. Even when provoked, they do not flare. Their actions are guided by principle, not passion. They do not seek to win arguments or dominate others. They seek to do what is right and to do it well. This posture confuses those who equate power with volume, movement with effectiveness. But true power does not need to announce itself. It speaks through restraint. It manifests in simplicity. It holds back when others pour forth, and in that holding it finds clarity, balance, and quiet mastery. A still mind sees clearly because it is not clouded by noise, emotion, or assumption. When the mind is agitated, it distorts reality. It exaggerates threats, misjudges intentions, and rushes to conclusions. In this state, a person becomes reactive, unable to distinguish between what is within their control and what is not. Clarity becomes impossible when the mind is ruled by panic or desire. But when the mind is still, calm, grounded, and composed, it reflects the world as it truly is. It does not twist events to fit a narrative. It does not color perception with fear or longing. It simply observes. To achieve such clarity, one must first become aware of how often the mind operates on autopilot. Most thoughts are not chosen. They arise uninvited, shaped by habit, bias, and old wounds. These thoughts become the lens through which the world is interpreted. Without stillness, this lens remains dirty, smeared with unexamined emotion and unchecked impulse. But the still mind is like a clear window. It allows the world to be seen without distortion. It enables the person to respond instead of react, to understand instead of assume, to remain steady instead of being swept away. This clarity is not passive. It is active attention, a conscious effort to strip away illusion. It involves watching thoughts without being led by them, hearing words without jumping to offense, facing challenges without magnifying them into catastrophes. The still mind does not deny emotion, but it does not bow to it either. It lets anger pass without becoming angry, lets fear arise without being ruled by it. This ability to stand apart from emotion without repressing it is what grants clarity. It is the discipline of allowing things to be seen fully, in all their complexity, without needing them to be different. In everyday life, this clarity reveals itself in countless moments. A still mind sees the person behind the insult, the pain behind the anger, the confusion behind the cruelty. It sees that not all opposition is personal, that many conflicts are misunderstandings magnified by ego and pride. It sees that most of what troubles people is not the event itself, but their interpretation of it. By removing the filter of judgment, the still mind can deal with facts instead of fantasies. It recognizes what is essential and discards what is not. It focuses on what can be done, rather than becoming paralyzed by what cannot. A still mind is not one that is empty of thought, but one that contains only what serves. It does not hoard worries, does not carry yesterday's anger or tomorrow's anxiety. It remains in the present, which is the only place clarity can exist. In this presence, decisions become easier, not because life is simple, but because the mind is no longer complicating it. The weight of unnecessary thought is lifted. The noise dies down. What remains is the quiet certainty of awareness. In relationships, clarity softens conflict. The still mind listens rather than waiting to reply. It does not jump to defend itself because it is not obsessed with self-image. It seeks to understand, not to win. It speaks carefully, not to manipulate, but to build truth. In work, clarity improves focus. It prevents wasteful energy spent on imagined outcomes and redirects it to the task at hand. It is efficient, not hurried. It is exact, not obsessive. Clarity is not about having all the answers. It is about being able to see the situation as it is, without exaggeration, denial, or fear. The still mind creates space between the world and one's interpretation of it. In that space, truth has room to appear, and from that truth, wise action can follow. To be like the rooted tree and not the wind-blown leaf is to cultivate steadiness in a world that constantly changes. Life is full of shifting circumstances, opinions, moods, and events that rise and fall without warning. The wind is relentless, taking many forms: criticism, praise, success, failure, love, loss, fear, and temptation. Those who lack inner foundation are moved by each gust. Their thoughts shift with popular opinion, their mood with passing events, and their direction with the strongest current. Like a leaf in the storm, they are tossed without control, always reacting, never anchored. The rooted tree does not escape the storm. It feels every push of the wind, every drop of rain, but it holds. Its roots reach deep into the earth, unseen, drawing strength from a source that does not shift with the seasons. This is the image of a person grounded in principle. They do not pretend to be untouched by life's challenges, but they remain unmoved in their core by them. They do not resist the world by becoming rigid, but by growing strong where it matters most. Within, to live like the rooted tree is to build one's life on values that do not change with fashion or it is to decide what is right and hold to it even when it is inconvenient, even when others disagree, even when it costs something. The leaf has no direction of its own. It goes wherever the wind takes it. The tree, by contrast, knows where it stands. Its strength is not in resistance to the world, but in harmony with what endures beneath its surface. It bends when it must, but breaks for nothing that does not violate its essence. Many people appear strong when things go their way, but their confidence dissolves the moment the wind turns. Their peace depends on circumstances, and their identity shifts based on how they are perceived. Without roots, they cannot withstand hardship or hold to truth in times of doubt. They seek approval and avoid discomfort. But the one who is rooted does not need to be reassured by the world. They are not indifferent to others, but they are not controlled by them. They choose stability over popularity, depth over appearance, and substance over noise. This rootedness is cultivated through reflection, discipline, and consistent action. It requires questioning one's motives and testing one's beliefs not against convenience but against truth. The person who is rooted has spent time understanding what matters and why. They have faced adversity without running and have learned to stand firm when challenged. Their calm is not the result of ignorance, but of experience. Their strength is not loud, but it is lasting. Being rooted also means being centered in the present. The wind tries to drag attention into the future or the past, into worry or regret, but the tree is always where it is. It does not chase what it cannot reach, nor cling to what has fallen away. Its presence is its power. The person who is rooted knows that they cannot control the wind, but they can control how they meet it. They do not prepare to avoid the storm, but to endure it with grace and dignity. In conversation, in conflict, in uncertainty, the rooted person remains steady. They do not raise their voice to be heard, nor do they lower their standards to be liked. They do not panic when plans change or collapse when misunderstood. They remain who they are across situations. This consistency creates trust, both in others and in themselves. It is the result of years spent aligning thought, word and deed, of choosing the hard right over the easy wrong, of building from the inside out. The wind will always blow, but it cannot uproot what has grown deep. Peace is not the absence of conflict, nor is it found in a life free from difficulty or disruption. Real peace begins with mastery over the self. It is not given by others, nor can it be taken away by the world, because it is rooted in the relationship one has with their own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. External peace is uncertain, subject to the shifting conditions of people and events. But internal peace, born of discipline and self-understanding, remains steady regardless of the environment. To master the self is to understand what truly lies within one's control. The desires that surge forward, the fears that cloud reason, the anger that rises when pride is touched, these are all natural movements of the human spirit, but they do not have to be obeyed. The one who is at peace does not suppress these emotions, but neither do they allow them to take the lead. They observe them, understand their origin, and choose whether or not to act. This distance between stimulus and response, this ability to choose, is the essence of mastery. Peace through self-mastery does not mean indifference. It does not mean becoming cold or detached from the world. It means becoming stable within it. The person who has mastered themselves can engage deeply with life, but without being ruled by its highs and lows. When praised, they do not become inflated. When criticized, they do not collapse. Their sense of self is not built on the shifting sands of opinion, but on the solid ground of character. They know who they are, what they value, and what they will stand for. This clarity protects them from being pulled in every direction. To live in this way requires constant attention. The self is not mastered once and for all. It is an ongoing process. Each day presents new tests, a careless word, a sudden loss, an unexpected challenge. The one who seeks peace must use each moment as an opportunity to practice calm, patience, and control. They must learn to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it, to witness anger without feeding it, to feel the pull of temptation and still say no. This kind of effort is not easy, but it is what strengthens the soul. There are many who appear to be at peace because their lives are currently free from trouble. But when the winds of misfortune blow, when loss or failure comes, their calm quickly breaks. This is not peace, only the illusion of it. True peace does not depend on favorable conditions. It is tested in hardship and proven in restraint. The one who has achieved it does not avoid the storm. They become the stillness within it. Self-mastery also means being able to direct one's energy wisely. The undisciplined mind is scattered, pulled in many directions, chasing distractions, indulging impulses, and reacting to everything. The disciplined mind is focused. It knows what to ignore. It does not waste effort on things that do not matter. This kind of focus brings not only peace but effectiveness. It allows one to move through life with intention, rather than being dragged by events. The path to peace through self-mastery is not dramatic. It is not won through grand gestures, but through small, repeated acts of control. Choosing not to retaliate, choosing not to indulge in self-pity, choosing silence over argument, choosing patience over urgency. These are the daily disciplines that build inner strength. Over time, they form a character that is not easily shaken. In a world full of noise, speed, and pressure, to live in peace is a rare achievement. It requires turning inward rather than outward, addressing the restlessness within instead of trying to fix the chaos outside. The person who does this does not become detached from life. They become more fully alive. Their peace is not an escape but a foundation, allowing them to face the world without fear, because they are no longer at war with themselves. And so stillness is not retreat. It is resistance to the chaos that seeks to claim the mind. It is not weakness but the quiet assertion of strength. It is clarity amidst confusion, firmness amidst fluctuation, peace amidst the pressures of living. In a world that urges you to react, to rush, to rage, choose instead to pause. Choose to anchor yourself in what endures. Let your mind be the calm in the storm, your spirit the steady flame that does not flicker with every gust. The world may remain noisy, uncertain, and ever-changing, but within you let there be stillness.